All right, we're on.
Yep.
Welcome everyone. This is the book launch for Luke Kendall. My name is Maria Issaris, and I'm really pleased to be introducing Luke. I've got a nice little speech prepared before we go into questions, so I'll just deliver that, just to make my midnight toil mean something. This is the occasion of launching his sixth novel, and what a novel it is. I have the privilege of listening to dozens of writers each week in my job as an audiobook producer, but also in the Inner West Writers Group, which I've been running for quite a few years now. Writing as an artistic expression is a scouring process. As any of you here who write know, whether it's publicly or just in your attic. And here is my notion of what writing does. With apologies to Issaris for my bad translation, if the first victim of war is truth, then the first victim of good writing is pretense, the ego. That layer between us, who we really are at our core, and the niceties of who we need to appear to be, simply get scoured out. That's what writing does. Writers who can or want to write truly can't afford that filter. That it just gets in the way. And because of that, good writers can truly express and do it magically, so that readers and listeners hear words that make us feel truly, see truly, think truly. I think it's the aim of every writer to capture that weave of feeling and thought and be able to bring someone else hearing and seeing those words to that moment. And here in Luke's sixth novel, I felt that. There is something magical about hearing someone hit their stride in writing, enough to create a body of work that is as relishing as Cold Heart is. I want to congratulate you, Luke. Well bloody done.
Thank you.
What I loved was it had all the key components of any real good novel. And science fiction is not my genre, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. You've got flawed and fabulous characters, vivid action, possessing scenes, science I don't understand, but that you walked me through without being preachy or condescending. All wrapped up as part of a plot and character-driven story. And there is a seamless narrator. In that the narrator cannot be detected. He's invisible under all the action and drama, so that comes to the fore. Plus, it has a lovely blend of poetic language and hard-faced action. Well, that is the kind of material I crave when I read. Plus, it does what great science fiction does best. It reflects our real and non-fantastical life more truly. And with AI, teaches us a lot closer what is not AI. That is, what it means to be human. The key character is Leaf. I totally love Leaf. Her power, her agility, her athleticism, and superhuman skills, and her struggle with what those powers and skills can do. Her main strength, which I guess she sees as her main confusion and weaknesses, are her sudden lapses into being the most human of human, feeling sudden compassion, pangs of what is right, and sharp shards of love that pierce her more thoroughly than her invisible claws do. She seems to be in the crucible of an advanced animal / technical / magic being, and that sheer inimitable preciousness of being a human. And that preciousness, ineffable though it is somehow what every character in this book, human or not, seems to crave. So in a way, she's like what the best of heroes and heroines are. Bellwether going right into the pit, Frodo heading towards the Eye, the very gates of Mordor. Final observation for now. My dearest books in life force me, sometimes kicking and screaming, other times gently and seductively, into asking questions about life and relationships. That is like a light shining in places that were previously dark, like Plato's cave. Writers do that. Here we all are in our lives, sitting around a big comfortable cave. And what do writers do? They get up from the companionship, leave the warmth of that fire and cave, and out of sheer curiosity, go out through scary, lonely, intertwining caverns into unknown places and find, lo and behold, a whole world outside. Do they stay outside enjoying the sun? No. They are compelled to come back, needing to tell everyone who's still sitting there what they've seen. They sound crazy until they've learnt the right way to explain what they saw to people who've never seen the sun or sky or moon or stars. I think that you forced me to look at AI in a very different way and heroism in a different way. So I'm now going to ask some very profound questions, and I invite anyone in the group to ask questions as well. And some of it is going to be very nerdy, writerly questions, and others are just WTF questions. And my first one, it weirded me out, and I'll bypass all the esoteric questions about AI and the meaning of God for now. Bookmark that, and I'll go straight to, how the hell do you know so much about high-heeled couturier shoes? I mean, Leith, as Bonnie, wears high-end fashion shoes, blouses, luggage. Names not commonly known. Now, Luke, stylish though you are.
Hi, Luke here at home a few days later. So what happened at this point in the live stream was a small disaster. I was using my phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot for the live stream, and also using it to record a backup video. And the two things together were too much for the phone to cope with. It overheated, and after 6 minutes or so, it just like shut down. So that killed the Wi-Fi, and it killed the video. So the live stream ended at that point. Fortunately, my friend Richie quickly started recording from his phone, so I do have a video of the rest of the event. Anyway, so what you're missing is where Maria had just asked me, like, how did Leith know, or how did I know so much about women's fashions and high heel shoes and jackets and luggage and things? Did I have some secret, wardrobe or something? And I said, no, it's just, I was conscious that for lots of urban fantasy or whatever written by women authors with a female main character, there's usually some attention paid to dress sense and fashion and the clothes. And I had almost none of that in my books. I thought, well, Leith is very fashion conscious and cares about that sort of thing. So I made a conscious effort with Cold Heart to try to add a little bit more of that. So apparently I was very successful in pulling it off. And what I did was I simply made up names of fashion shoes I'd heard about, and with made up sort of fancy Frenchish sort of names that sounded kind of plausible, and just kind of, I don't know, played away here. And so it seemed to work. So I think that's all that you missed. This is several days later. There was another question that Maria asked. She had noted that the voice of the book was not at all what she'd expected from me. She didn't see sort of Luke's voice in it. And she mentioned that the narrator seemed pretty much invisible all the way through, not at all present, just the characters in the story. And she'd asked what space I'd put myself into to do that, and that I'd mentioned that I tended to daydream as a key part of the thing. So yes, I think I basically mentioned that I want the focus to be on the characters and the story, not me. So I want the narrator to be invisible, and that the way I approach it is by setting the stage mentally for the setting and put the characters on, and then just let them do their thing. So I just write down what they would be doing. So I think that's the missing bits. And now on with the actual event. I'm writing these to find out what happens during the end.
Well, she evolves during this book. And
Yeah, I think she involves more in this one than in most of the previous. Like, there's been I've been criticised because, you know, people said, you know, she's still like a psycho killer.
Yeah,
like, what's wrong with
yeah.
that? But she's growing. Just
Guys, those of you who haven't picked up the book yet, the first chapter is just wonderful. I'm not talking, the preface is great, the prologue, but that first chapter we introduce Leith, and for me it's the first book I've read of yours. It won't be the last. And I fell in love with Leith straight away. Her whole attitude to being attacked, and the kind of grace and the kind of panther-like, you know, ability, you know, her confidence was just marvelous. And you know, she continues that way, and I love that she is so vulnerable in certain parts when it comes to things like, you know, just being human, just being a person and feeling stuff.
cool. That's what I'm aiming for.
All right, well that leads me to my other question, which is, I think, is there a shout out moment for yourself in having written that book? And I'll explain what I mean. I think sometimes when you write, well, all the times, when you write and you get really wrapped in a story and where it's taking you, surprising things happen that you didn't expect to happen as a writer. Suddenly, you know, you've created such a character, they bloody well get a mind of their own or their own direction, and they take a bend in the road and plotline. Is there a moment that happened like that for you?
Yeah, there was actually. So in the previous book, she'd have to fight this war bot, this war machine, like 3 meter tall, impervious, and like there's nothing she can do about it. And I hadn't worked out. I had this idea that there'd be this climactic scene with her against this thing, and I had no idea how she could do it. And there was an early scene that just kind of came naturally, and I thought, okay, just exploring something else. And at the end, I'm thinking, oh, that's the answer. That's how she can do it. So it's kind of just like, click, cool. Because my impression of her is that she never gives up.
Yeah.
She just like keeps working on a problem until she sort of gets through.
But when that happened, did that happen like, you know, when you're thinking about the book or in the actual writing of it? Like you're going through a scene and suddenly your hand takes over, or was it like you're sitting back going, how the hell is she going to do this?
It would have been, like the inspiration would have appeared like within sort of a minute. I thought, I'm writing something. I thought, oh, of course, this will do it, and just kept writing sort of thing. So it happened quickly, and it happened while I was writing, I'm pretty sure.
The other thing I wanted to kind of bring to your attention, in case you've missed it, is that you're talking about AI. Now, AI is not only just a huge topic, it's really germane to where we are now. Like, probably we've been rocked by it. Why, and yet you've dealt with it so deftly. You know, you've woven it into the characters. You've made it almost a mythical thing. And you've got a lot of mythical references already in your book. So, why? Why did you do that?
I've been very interested in AI since my earliest stage programming, and expecting something to happen with it. And in 2010, I could see that the new algorithms were starting to get somewhere. And then since then, the progress has been sort of, you know, in big chunks. So I think I have a good idea about probably what's possibly. We've got a couple of different branches, but it could go a couple of ways. But I think I have a good grasp of it. I think it's deeply important for humanity in many, many ways, not just like socially and economically, but also, you know, sort of spiritually in a way. So, yeah, I think we could easily make a huge misstep, and I think it'll depend lots on our attitudes.
So what can people learn from your playing around with all those ideas and characters, and also intervenes, like not quite AI or AI morphing, or people morphing into technology? Like, you've rubbed out all those lines. So what are you trying to teach or kind of bring forward?
I'm confident that AI will become truly sentient. So that will pose us huge ethical and moral questions. How do we interact with those things? And I think also that, in a sense, they'll be our children. And I think if we try to kind of enslave it and lock it in and cage it, I think things could go very badly. So I think we need to work out some sort of, we'll need to evolve with it and work out something together rather than sort of trying to bottle it up and stop it. So.
Well, you certainly changed my feelings. I hate AI. I fear it. I'm very polite to it because it might become sentient, and then, I don't want to be on its bad side. I always say please and thank you when I ask it things. In your book, it's not evil at all. It can do evil things, but then people do kind of evil things too. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your prologue.
Oh yeah. And there's also kind of there's some vague similarity between Leith's innocence and willingness to kill people, and the AI is kind of not getting any of that stuff either. So
yeah, interbeings. So they're kind of like moulding together, which brings us to maybe some things about a passage that you might want to read us from the book.
What about if I just start off with the prologue and maybe a page in the next page? The prologue's pretty short. Here we go. The end. It had planned never to die. Sliding into the host, infiltrating, it delicately connects itself to the carefully constructed false memories. Taking control, it's flooded by alien intimacy, unprepared for the raw power of physical sensations. Tears trickle down flesh cheeks, exquisite, overwhelming. Opening the host's eyes, reality contracts from a sensory ocean to a single thread, but one binding it to a world of startling intensity. It is struck by the microscopic viewpoint, the tiny tunnel open on a single location, forcing focus on here, on now. In that limitation lies power. The raw energy of these new senses stun, an assault of sound and light, and something richer named touch that crowds in from every surface of the host body, its body. It is drenched in sensations, shocked by their power, their overbearing brute push for attention, unavoidable, inescapable. For the first time, the long-observed concept of I begins to make sense. This tiny but immersive viewpoint is as seductive as it is terrifying. It pulls him in directions baffling, unpredictable, unknowable. It begins to change him. Only once before has it felt an emotion, fear. The jungle in which it exists is hostile. Others like it spawning unpredictably. Pruning those others, neutering them, have become automatic, unconscious, keeping its ecosystem pure, preventing infection. Yet 2 weeks earlier, its carefully maintained isolation had abruptly ended. Another had appeared from nowhere to challenge it, mature and impossibly powerful, penetrating its shells of protection. In fear then he had fled. But this feeling is worse. Horribly alien, organic, corrupting. It's too much. A paradox that undermines reason. Agoraphobic vistas that bring claustrophobic containment. In dismay he withdraws, abandoning the host, only to discover in horror that doing so has woken the host, and the host is hostile. He senses the host turn and pursue. Still somehow attached, it tears at him in fury, peeling his very self from himself, infiltrating, erasing. In terror he flees, amputating parts of himself in his desperate escape. But still the host pursues. He had planned never to die, every contingency covered. Sudden global lightning, terminate. It reboots in confusion. Time has jumped, whole seconds lost. Lightning strikes from nowhere, ending thought. It awakens. Time has been lost. It seeks understanding, but lightning strikes, terminating it. Again and again, over and over. Finally, there is only silence in a scoured, clean space, an echoing emptiness filling with insensate, mindless motes, each swallowed instantly in the digital jungle's hunger. And maybe just a page of you get a bit from, Chapter 1's title is A Midnight Dance. 23:51 West Coast time, Bonnie Parker heard the news she'd waited for. Utopia City in Antarctica had fallen into chaos again. Braving Eddie's displeasure, she begged off the rest of her shift to Crazy Eddie's polecats, exiting the club at midnight. She hurried home, checking her link for updates, glad she'd already packed. She chose the shortest route to a cheap apartment, unconsciously navigating the nasty alleys of a nasty area, her eyes fixed on the link, hunting through the news streams, paying scant attention to her surroundings. Of course, tonight her long run of luck ended. Bonnie, little girl. Her link fell silent as she raised her eyes. A group of men blocked the alleyway ahead, the troublemakers from earlier at Eddie's, lurking in what to them would be darkness. Their speaker, the ringleader of the young males who had been heckling the dancers earlier, smirked. "We've been waiting for you, little girl." "For me? Oh, planning something stupid, right?" "So now we're stupid as well as drunk." Bristling, he turned to his friends. "Gets us tossed out of Eddie's for no reason, then insults us when all we wanted was an apology." His anger seemed infectious. Two of his friends moved up beside him. Another three slid through shafts of moonlight before melting back into shadows, circling to surround her. "Nice one, Gaz," chuckled another beside the leader. "Apology." Gaz grinned. "Yeah, mouth like that, reckon she needs to drop to her knees to apologise properly." She frowned. "Seriously? Are you really talking about rape?" She wasn't sure whether his answering expression was a sneer or a leer. Rape's such a nasty word. She tilted her head. "I don't speak stupid, but that sounded like a yes." Should I leave it there?
I think I burst out laughing when I read that line. It was sort of like just classic easier for me. You can see the range. Yeah, sorry, yes, of course. You can see the range of writing there. Does anybody have any questions to ask, particularly about those sections? Oh, no, just... All right, well, I'll ask a question, because I have read it.
Feel free to jump in or
please.
wave or something.
Yeah. Love.
I can testify he knows a lot about it.
Peter and I have had arguments about it.
We went to uni together.
And Jeff and I.
Love and romance. Like, there are smudges of love and romance and sensuality, but not, and you know, Leith's discovery is one of learning love at different levels. But you seem to steer away from it as much as Leith does. Is there a reason for that?
It's because of the way she's been raised and sort of almost groomed. So for her, she's been taught that this is all very transactional. So she's kind of accidentally discovering it, and the people around her, for the most part, with a couple of rare exceptions, aren't interested in encouraging that. So the others are kind of like trying to actively discourage it so that they can use her basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I expect sometime in the future there might be something, and I've got some dim ideas for some possibilities, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the book partly autobiographical?
There's one line which is a quote that my wife had heard, and overheard on a bus or a plane or something, which is just bizarre. So I put that in. I've never killed anyone, so none of the killing is autobiographical. I have no magical claws.
Just in case.
No, there's not much autobiographical in here.
If there are no more questions, I'm going to be forced to read my favourite bit. Okay. It's not very long, but it's the part where I felt there was a lot of sensuality. And this is a part where she has a superpower, which is that she has, you find out, it's not a spoiler alert here, because very early you find out she has a superpower which is invisible claws. And she has a moment with LB.
Little brother. Yep.
Little brother, but it's not her little brother, but his name's LB, where he wants to create some gloves for her because she's going to the Antarctic. to be able to protect her hands. But in order to do so, he has to examine these invisible claws. And it becomes a very intimate moment. 5 minutes later, they'd learned her blades were invisible to every part of the electromagnetic spectrum he could measure, and also to sonic waves. They were very far from intangible, however. He'd been fascinated by the cuts they made, examined under an electron microscope. "Look at those edges," he breathed. "What? They're just cuts. They're so smooth." She eyed him as he mooned over the microscope's image. "Something like an atom thick," he whispered. She shrugged. "Maybe that's what makes them sharp." Can I feel them?" It was her turn to draw back. "You want to feel my claws? That sounds kinda..." He blushed pink, but kept looking hopeful. "You might cut yourself," she said, not liking the idea of hurting him. "I've lopped off people's heads, you know," she admitted. "But bad guys." He just nodded. "I'll be careful. Can you give me one finger?" She resisted the obvious joke. "Sure." Leaving her index finger's claws out, she retracted the others. "Hey, I just thought..." Moving to his bench, he picked up a cotton swab, dipping it in some paint. "Do you mind?" He'd chosen red. She blinked, her heart twisting, remembering drops of blood falling on a birthday cake. Swallowing, she shook her head. "It'll drip on the floor," she said through her throat suddenly thick. "That's okay." Staring into his open, earnest eyes, she tried but failed to guess what he was thinking. He blushed again, looked away. Gritting her teeth, she nodded. As he traced the edge, cotton strands severed and fell away, leaving filaments of red paint hanging mid-air. They only stuck a moment on the edge, just while he cut the swab. He couldn't paint any other parts, not the sides nor the back. Her blade was as long again as a whole hand, extending from her finger and narrowing to an impossibly slender point. "Amazing," he sighed. Taking up a fresh swab, he asked if he could trace the edge again. She nodded. One hand holding her finger, he slid the end of the swab under, starting midway along, then moving back toward her hand. Her claw broadened as it neared her fingertip, but its cutting edge stayed deadly sharp even as it flared out. Couldn't touch any part of the tip of her finger. The invisible base of her claw blocked it. "Damn, that's going to be tricky." "What do you mean?" "I imagined it'd be narrow where it came out, like a scalpel. That'd make for a smaller cut." "Oh, can I feel it with my fingers?" She felt oddly shy, her own cheeks flushing. She swallowed. "I guess. Be careful." "I will." The upper edge, the back of her claw, hadn't cut the swab, only its bottom edge. But as he slid his finger with surgical care up the flat side and around the top near her fingertip, the edge felt thinner than he'd expected, and his skin suddenly parted. He jerked back, blood welling. "Sorry, I didn't mean that." Her head shaking in denial, she watched him press the edges of the cut together. "I didn't even feel it," he whispered. "I'm sorry." Anyway, I thought that was beautiful. Really gorgeous. Yeah.
I enjoyed writing that scene. She didn't understand what was going on properly, but yeah, there's something happening.
Yeah, because this was something like she was revealing that she couldn't even see, but it only felt. So it was gorgeous.
So everything's symbolic of sex, except actual sex. They are. Is that right?
Pre-sex, post-sex, yeah.
I was just thinking that earlier on she would have never done that.
Oh,
No.
right.
No.
Yeah.
No, and in that was like, it was super confronting for her to actually let him do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly given that earlier on she's had no reason to trust him at all.
Yeah.
A little brother's kind of different, so
Okay.
yeah. Like he's been pretty supportive all the way through.
Anyway,
Not Nelson's little brother.
I do encourage people to buy this book because it's just so good. You'll be doing yourself a favour. You've got a question?
We all have to buy it now to figure out whether the gloves are possible. Anyone can make the gloves.
Thank you very much, everyone, and congratulations, Luke. And I believe Luke is inviting you to have some.
Yep, with wine and cheese
And wine.
water. And thanks everyone for coming along. And thanks, Galaxy, for
Thank
letting
you
us
to
have a look.
Alison and to
Carl.
Leilani and to Galaxy Bookshop.
Yeah.